There are people out to hurt us, out to bring violence against us. What kind of messed up game are you playing?
Is it true? What happened in the past, me?
It's not what you think.
Who are you? Sure you want to go through with this?
Of course. Doctor Who episode? Yes, a Doctor Who episode.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, I'm Brian Brushwood, and more importantly, I have no idea what we just saw. Bryce, please elucidate.
That was a trailer for Netflix's upcoming thriller film, The Strays, streaming on February 22nd. It's about an upper-class woman in a perfect life, a nice, quaint town, and she ends up being haunted by two unknown figures who keep showing up around town.
Of course,
Are they hidden figures?
Yep, nope. This is based on the famous DC comic book series, right?
Yep, that's right. She gets superpowers, and then she stops an alien, and
I was expecting to fail on that. My whole bit was going to be, I was like, famous video game franchise, a famous whatever, or could it be just, I don't know, an original awesome story that shows up on
neat.
Netflix?
Yeah, it seems neat. That's coming February 22nd.
February 22nd with British accents on Netflix. All right, let's get to the primary target. It's anniversary time.
Anniversary.
Brian, do you remember where you were on January 30th, 2013?
I do, Tom, because I just got a letter from the U.S. government saying that I have one more day to renew my patent at the USPTO for the trademark on scam stuff, gear for the modern rogue. So I was definitely at your house 10 years ago today, because that's where I filed it.
Well, and then do you remember, because I don't, us having a conversation about the news that Ted Sarandos had been interviewed and said, the goal is to become HBO faster than HBO can become us.
I suspect there's footage of us in your studio
My
talking
basement.
about this.
Yep.
I remember agreeing with sentiment at the time. I'm like, yeah, dude, good luck. There's no competition. You have the entire playing field all to yourself. Just go. And yet, Tom, here we sit 10 years later, and I don't know if they've succeeded.
Yeah. So at the time it was, we're launching this crazy new original show, House of Cards. You might have watched Lilyhammer, but that was just something someone was making for another network anyway. In fact, I believe it was for HBO Nordic. But House of Cards, that's a Netflix original. We're going to do 5 shows a year. That was what The Verge reported as their crazy number. I think now they're doing like hundreds. But that was the banner quote. Like you said, the goal was become HBO faster than HBO can become us. Back then, the idea was we want to become a place where people land to watch original shows, right? Because Netflix had not been doing original shows. So it was very much, HBO is known for having movies, but also amazing original shows. Netflix is getting into the original shows game. And HBO, for its part, had HBO Go, but you had to have a cable subscription to get the streaming version of HBO. And so what Sarandos was saying is, we're going to become a place that not only has movies, but a bunch of great original shows before HBO can become a competitive streaming service. Today, I feel like it reads a little differently. HBO is the place with prestige television. Not that it wasn't back then, but that's not the way it was being read in this context. And Ted Sarandos is now the co-CEO of a Netflix that is just seen as a vast, wide selection of all kinds of qualities of shows.
It's also worth noting, I believe at 10 years ago, the only way to get any kind of HBO content would have been to have an actual HBO cable subscription. And HBO would intentionally turn a blind eye to all of the piracy while also very much enjoying the notoriety of being the most pirated content out there, because we're looking at upwards of the peak of Game of Thrones and what have you. I think you're right that 10 years ago, there was not a lot of talk about prestige streaming content or prestige television writ large.
You might talk about HBO in those terms, but not in this conversation about HBO and Netflix, right?
Yeah. Well, and so Netflix is, let's interpret, and of course, whatever they said, we get to interpret it however we want. If what they meant to say was, we want to corner prestige streaming video content before HBO comes to eat our lunch, there was a hot minute for the next 5 years that I think they did. But man, HBO Max has just eaten their lunch, it seems like. It seems like Netflix is increasingly just drilling down into extraordinarily specific niches or taking international content and bringing it to other markets. I don't know. I don't know how great they're doing, Tom.
I think it certainly depends on which end of this you're looking at as far as definitions, but I think I would feel comfortable saying that HBO has become Netflix and Netflix has not become HBO. And I mean that in a lot of different ways. One is that no one thinks of Netflix as a prestige location, right? That is a problem for Netflix because they have prestige shows. They have Queen's Gambit. They have Stranger Things. They have shows that people buzz about, like Bridgerton. But they also have the Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston movies, and they also have shows that people are like, yeah, I just have it on in the background. It's not that great,
or increasingly bizarre, very niche specific content.
And all colors in between. So people don't think of HBO that way, and they don't think of Netflix as being an HBO. But HBO Max has become a thing where they've preserved the brand of HBO as prestige programming, where you're going to get The Last of Us, you're going to get Euphoria. But it is within HBO Max, which also has weird original movies and romantic comedies and some Max branded shows, some of which, like Hacks, are very good. Others are kind of these weird, like niche oriented things, but nobody confuses that with HBO. In which case I would say, I think HBO Max became Netflix without losing itself as HBO. And I don't think Netflix is seen as being like HBO.
It's utterly shocking to me that something so obvious to me 10 years ago, I turned out to be so very wrong at. Netflix had everything going for it. They had, again, at the time, House of Cards was looking to launch them into the stratosphere, and this is before Stranger Things. But on top of that, they were also plumbing the niche ends of the fractal of everybody's interests. And then meanwhile, we saw HBO make the move of, what if it's HBO with like a bunch of garbage stapled to it? I thought for sure that was going to reduce the brand of HBO. But instead, I'm just wrong. I'm just wrong. I don't know. I don't understand how HBO Max has won so hard, because if I think of, if I'm going to name 5 things I love very, very much on streaming services, I'm going to guess 2 of them are going to be on Disney Plus, 2 of them are going to be on HBO Max, and maybe 1 will be on Netflix.
I'm going to try something out and see if it fits. When you look at an HBO show on HBO Max, you say, oh, that's an HBO show. When you look at another show that is not HBO Max on HBO Max, you say, well, oh, yeah, it's on that service, but I'm not going to watch it. It's not HBO. When you're on Netflix, everything is Netflix. There's no like, oh, Bridgerton, a Netflix signature show. There's no elevated section of Netflix. It's all Netflix. So when I say a Netflix show, it means all of them, no matter which ones you're talking about. And people tend to focus on the ones that were weird or niche or bad or got canceled or whatever, in a way they don't with HBO Max, when there's a built-in category that says, well sure, they have but those aren't HBO. And HBO's in the name, which for now, we'll see how long it stays in the name, but they're like, yeah, but that's HBO and that's different.
Well, and
I think it may come down to something as simple as that, where you don't have a way to differentiate Bridgertons and Stranger Things from other Netflix offerings.
Well, and one of the fascinating things about the HBO Max brand is that a lot of people think it has something to do with Cinemax. It doesn't, or whatever, but there's HBO and there's Max. HBO are the prestige official HBO shows like The Last of Us, but Max originals, you get these daring, outrageous offerings like Hacks or Our Flag Means Death is a Max original, or Harley Quinn is a Max original. I think Peacemaker was Max and not necessarily HBO.
Correct.
Like that's extraordinary to me that Max turns out to be the electric brand that I almost could ditch the HBO part and just watch the Max. If I had to choose between Netflix, HBO, and Max in the HBO Max combination, I might just go Max.
Raised by Wolves.
Well, that was there too.
Gossip Girl.
Bold.
Love Life.
And a couple of crazy documentaries.
That damn Michael Che.
Like, don't put me in a corner here. You get my point.
Just like that.
My point is that Netflix had the lead. They had nobody in front of them, and they ran. But they, maybe is it the case that they just try to fill too much area over a two-dimensional space?
The reason I brought up those particular Max originals just now was to point out that we forgive them for making that, right? And we focus on the good stuff, whether it's Hacks, Our Flags Mean Death, or just saying like, but there's also House of the Dragon and Last of Us and Euphoria and all the great HBO shows. Netflix, you lump it all together. And so you people tend to not forget the things, even if they haven't watched them.
So this is a case where normally I'm not a fan of any brand being an umbrella brand because it doesn't, if you mean everything, you mean nothing. But HBO Max might be an unusually specific opportunity in that it has one brand that means polished prestige things, your Successions and so on, but also an experimental sub-brand.
Right. Your mileage may vary. Yeah. And you're not going to get mad at it if it fails because you're like, it was a Max thing. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, but when they hit, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, that's the dynamic range of taking big swings like that, which I assume Netflix is also thinking. Like, we're going to take a bunch of swings. Some of them will hit, some of them won't. Some of them will be Bridgertons, some of them will not. Some of them will be Queen's Gambit, some of them will not. So why is it that the perception is, but Netflix is just full of crappy stuff?
Do we think that maybe this is something I'm feeling out the space, so I might suddenly disagree with myself in about 5 seconds. Do you think there's a place for like a Netflix Searchlight brand?
Yeah,
something that implies here's some experimental stuff where we're letting emerging auteurs.
I got one for you.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Split up Netflix films and Netflix TV.
Ooh.
Netflix films, Netflix series, Netflix special. Like that, there is such a gap, I think, between the movies that Netflix is investing in, these high budget, big name star movies, your Red Notices and your all of them, that Michael Bay movie that they did. And then all these series, which are a lot of foreign shows or cheaper shows or new reality or competition formats. And there's such a gulf between the two of those that I think you can definitely keep at least the Netflix name and say, these are our movies. You'll see our movies in one way, and our TVs, and you'll see our TV shows in another light. It would at least break it up a little bit, because you're right. It's all Netflix, and how long is the word? I
still
Netflix
think you have the TV show problem of like, your TV shows are crap, even though I like a couple of them a lot. So I think that helps, especially because they have so many like blockbuster popcorn type movies. I'm still thinking along the lines of, the Netflix experimental and the Netflix signature. give me the. Does Hill Country Fair differentiate their house brands? Because I know Ralph's does.
By the way, we're all speaking Texan right now for anybody uninitiated. Hill Country Fair is the HEB brand that is the same manufacturers that make some of the high-end stuff, but they just label it Hill Country Fair and sell it for less than.
So Ralph's is the grocery store here, and they'll have house brands that are premium. Right. So it's still a house brand, right? It's still from within Ralph's, but it's the premium version of the house brand. Is there a way that Netflix should be doing that?
We didn't plan any of this, so I may regret this pitch, but let me give you a pitch. If you're going to split Netflix into kind of regions, similar to, this is one thing that I think Disney Plus has done extraordinarily well. They have 5 pillars, and everybody can name them. It's a Star Wars, a Disney, a Marvel, a Star,
Nat Geo.
A Nat Geo, and whatever the other one is.
And the other one.
Yeah. I made the mistake that every politician does of saying it's a simple list and then not be able to finish the list. But, but my point is, if you're going to do that with Netflix, it would be Netflix films, right?
So we take Bryce's idea there. I think that's a good one.
Right. Netflix Explore. And that would be all of your international offerings that come in.
They do have a couple of other Netflix brands. They have Netflix as a Joke, which they use for their comedy offerings.
Yeah, they already use that. Yeah,
they have Netflix NX, I think, on social media for their sci-fi and.
By the way, it's Pixar for just so for anybody at home.
Pixar, thank you, Captain Cheeseloaf.
So they even do have some of those sub brands actually in practice, in use, but only in their marketing campaigns, not in textual.
No, bringing up Disney Plus is a really good point. That like HBO Max does that too, where you can drill down. It's not as used as prominently as Disney, but there's Warner content. There's Max originals. There's HBO. So Adult Swim has its own section. Netflix doesn't have that. Netflix is like, but the algorithm will sort it out. You'll have sections that are tailored to you. And I have to say, it just isn't working. I think I think we may have circled around to the biggest thing is that Netflix's algorithm is just not as good as they think it is. And people react to that by saying it's just a vast wasteland. I go in, I can't decide what to watch, and there's all this crap. Because they're seeing a bunch of things that aren't interesting to them because the algorithm isn't working as well as Netflix would like it to. Whereas breaking things up a little more and showing you fewer options might reduce that perception. And to Bryce's point, they've already got brands. Just use them.
Well, and it is worth noting that both Disney and Disney HBO Max. Sorry, I was trying to figure out if there was a parallel for Amazon as well, but there wasn't. But they have the benefit of being created after they aggregate existing verticals, whereas Netflix would have to make the decision to intentionally split itself asunder from within, which is a difficult thing to do. But the benefit to those verticals, it's like I open up the Disney Plus and I'm like, adults, kids, blah, 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 whatever. I think Netflix could really benefit for it, but I don't know how they make that transition without making it look like they're just chopping themselves up.
I'm tempted to say you just make it a UI thing, right? So you undersell it and say like, hey, we've added some new categories. There's Netflix as a Joke that collects all the comedies. Netflix NX that has all our sci-fi stuff. Netflix Films for all that's now easier to find, all the things. And you just go at it that way. And people look at it and recognize it from other platforms like Disney Plus and HBO Max and immediately snap to it. And it doesn't feel like you've divided up the company. And in fact, internally, you might not have to change anything. You
know what? I almost wonder if they could divide everything up according to feelings. For example, an icon of laughter to indicate Netflix is the joke, that whole vertical. A icon of a heart of like to convey I'm comfortable. This is a comfort watch to me. These are familiar faces or whatever. And then another one for, I don't know, a film icon for, you're seeing prestige filmmaking happen.
I feel like you need a word, though, because one of the benefits that HBO is having is that you can say HBO to someone and they know immediately the boundaries within which that show is going to exist.
Well, and Netflix had that benefit for the majority of the pandemic. You were able to say Netflix, and they're like, the thing I watch on the couch while I stay home, afraid of the world. Got it. And that was great when they had a bazillion other things.
Yeah, I think we nailed it. But we need to refine it. So folks, cordkillers@gmail.com, let us know how you would present Netflix in order to finally have it achieve the goal of having become HBO.
And more importantly,
I don't think they could do it faster, but they could still do it.
We haven't made a big deal about this on the show, but I think it's been pretty clear from the beginning that we want to just straight up buy Netflix. We're trying to raise a little bit of scratch. If you don't mind, we'd just like to buy Netflix, take this whole business off their hands. We'll run it the way we see fit. And you can make that happen by going over to patreon.com/cordkillers.
That's right. Reed Hastings stepped down as co-CEO thinking we were going to buy Netflix and it would be in good hands. Don't let Reed's semi-retirement end up being stressful. It's bad for you. It's bad for Reed. It's bad for us.
I'll tell you what.
Cure everyone by supporting us at Patreon.
Yes. As a matter of fact, do a Google search right now. See if anywhere, any article, anywhere mentions that he specifically stepped down so that Brian and Tom could run Netflix. You won't find it. You know why? Big media is suppressing the real story. Let's get it out there. Head on over to patreon.com/cordkillers.
Let's talk about how to watch. CNET had an article a little bit ago arguing why streaming prices will continue to rise this year. Basically, the argument ran that as we've maxed out on services, the customer acquisition phase has reached the end, where you sell stuff really cheap just to get customers. Services have gained as many customers as they're gonna with the cheap introductory prices that lose them money. So it's time for them to retrench and compete on content and raise prices to make their services profitable. Of course, you can also launch ad-supported services that can keep prices low while also adding money. You're seeing Netflix, Disney, etc., all doing that. Dish's cable replacement service, Sling TV, though, is losing subscribers. Lost 77,000 last quarter to finish with 2.33 million. Sling recently raised prices by $5, so it's not in the customer acquisition phase, sadly. It's in the customer losing phase. If a la carte services are going up and cable services are also going up in price, is there something you get out of cable that's going to keep them competitive? Live TV and sports has been the thing you could say, well, you need YouTube TV if you want that. You need Sling TV if you want that. But those are now increasingly going over to the services. CBS has football on Paramount Plus. NBC has all of its sports, for the most part, streaming through Peacock. Netflix reached a multi-year partnership with the Screen Actors Guild to stream the SAG Awards. So even if you don't care about sports, there's something happening live in these individual places, starting in 2024 anyway. HBO Max launched its first U.S. live sporting stream on January 17th with the U.S. women's national soccer team against New Zealand. YouTube renewed its agreement to stream the Coachella Music Festival for free through 2026 just on YouTube. You don't need YouTube TV for that. Brian, Live was one of the last compelling reasons to keep cable or even to go to the trouble of setting up over the air. Is that it? Are we seeing the shift away from these linear services?
Let me make a proposal, and I'm fully comfortable with you pushing back on this and telling me I'm full of nonsense. But I perceive that the first 7 years of our journey or so, we were pining for an ability to watch what we want when we want it on whatever device we chose. We didn't really price in much on that. We didn't consider like how many different services we would like to have. we in general had a sense that it was much easier to turn on and turn off an individual streaming service than it was to pick up the phone and call Time Warner, Spectrum, who have you, and Comcast, and go through a negotiation or whatever. But what I suspect is happening now is, even if all of these services do not offer more content or better originals, there is a value to the simplicity. For example, today I got a message from Apple saying, by the way, you're still paying for Crunchyroll. And I called my daughter and I said, hey, are you watching Crunchyroll? And she goes, yeah, I am. We can cancel it if you want. And I'm like, no. Feel free. That's fine. As long as you're watching it. I just don't want to be paying for something that nobody's watching or whatever. And in a world where let's say nobody goes out of their way to create extraordinary, very good content, but instead the default action, the one that requires the less effort on your part, is to keep on going until you get annoyed at how high the prices are. Then you'll bother to do it. But for every one of you who's going to cancel a service, there's going to be somebody else who still has not hit their threshold and doesn't really care just yet. So I suspect that all of this is hearkening back to what we wanted out of a cable service, but we are paying the service price of simplicity is what I'm suggesting. So by which I mean the Sling TV is, you know for a fact you're buying a lot of things that you don't necessarily need or want. It's too close to the cable environment. Makes sense that you wouldn't want to do that. Everything else, you've got these aggregators. You've got Amazon.com that you could buy HBO or Showtime or Stars through. Same thing with Apple aggregator or whatever. And it's very, very easy to check and uncheck those. So part of me would rather see a higher monthly rate for those, but with the ability to say, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. And I'm okay with that. Is that crazy?
No, it's not. And just like we're not seeing cable dying, even though it's declining, I don't think we'll see all of these services totally die. YouTube TV seems to be making a go of it. I think they'll stick around. Hulu Live, it's a little hazy because we don't really know what Disney wants to do with Hulu itself. But for the time being, I feel like they like the idea that they can add live channels to your package, to your bundle. I feel like those two are safe. Everybody else, DirecTV Stream, Sling TV, Tubi, not Tubi. What's the Fubo? Those are all on the block for me. I feel like as more and more things move into HBO Max, into Peacock, into Paramount Plus, there's going to be even less compelling reason for people to want to buy the thing that pulls in some stuff. It's not even everything. DirecTV Stream has been making a big marketing push to say, hey, you can watch all the things on DirecTV Stream, including HBO's Max shows and stuff. They have AMC Plus as an add-on. Maybe they survive as a platform that lets you add those packages. Maybe cable services like Xfinity from Comcast can survive as a place that lets you add channels to those packages. But it does, as you just pointed out, seem like Amazon and Apple have a much better chance of becoming the platforms that let you manage which channels you want to add and subtract. And I feel like that's where we're headed.
And in the short term, it's ugly to watch everybody raise their prices. But if they're comfortable with the idea, like, yeah, no, we're going to raise our prices and we're just not going to depend on a full year, 12 months straight of everybody subscribing to our thing. We're going to know that people are going to drop off and then come back and then drop off and then come back.
Well, and YouTube actually as a platform, I mentioned Amazon and Apple, but I should mention Google too, because YouTube as a platform for adding channels, the genius that they're doing is saying, yeah, you can have YouTube TV and add channels, or you can add those same channels to just YouTube without having to pay for YouTube TV. We win either way. We want to get your money. So I feel like those three are the best chance. And they don't care if the prices go up or down. as long as they're getting their cut. I guess they would like them to go up so they get a bigger cut, but they are happy to be the place like Apple that says like, hey, you're still paying for Crunchyroll. You want that? Like as a differentiator that says you might want to use our platform because we help keep an eye out on you and help you manage all those crazy subscriptions out there. That's the biggest complaint people have about the new landscape is I'm paying for so many things it's hard to keep track.
So as we enter this switch flipping world of turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off for whatever content you want, I suspect that this is going to be a very, very good time for all of the fast services, for all of the ad-supported over-the-top streamers.
Yeah. For one thing, it's the people that are just fed up and don't want to pay for any of it anymore, and also are not picky. They just want to watch some good stuff. It doesn't have to be any particular show.
Also, they will never be on the chopping block. If I ever look at my monthly budget, why would I ever cut Pluto or what have you? You know, because it costs me nothing.
There's no way to cut it anyway because you're not paying for it. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's one of the reasons Fast has a lot of traction, and because of that, it's a great way to up convert people to say like, hey, we're showing you these great Peacock shows on Zumo. Would you like to see more of them? Just pay $4.99 a month for Peacock. And in fact, forget Zumo. Peacock has a free with ads version of itself that you can just watch for free. Everybody forgets that, but it's a great way to get people into the tent and then hopefully convince them like, it'd probably be worth paying $5 a month to be able to access more of those shows because I really like that show, et cetera, et cetera. All right. I think we would like your emails on that as well. Cordkillers@gmail.com. Do you think this is the direction, or do you like, no, you've got it all wrong. The landscape is going this way. Again, cordkillers@gmail.com. Let's talk about what to watch and Under Surveillance.
I like real estate. It's all about location.
Under surveillance.
We should bring back the old trailer park moniker this week. Got a ton of trailers. First off, HBO announced that season 4 of Succession will premiere on March 26th and gave us a new trailer at the same time.
This trailer starts off so good, and then eventually it gets into the weeds of what's actually happening in Succession. But that first 60 seconds, that standalone negotiation of whether or not their dad's going to call them or get them on the phone or send them a message requesting the thing. Oh my God, it was so good. I cannot wait for this to come back.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this as well. I don't have anything to add other than that, right? I'm just looking forward to watching it. And then we could talk about what we see on Spoilerin time. Paramount Plus released a trailer for season 3 of Star Trek Picard, which arrives on February 16th. This is the most TNG movie trailer of any of the Picard trailers I have seen.
Yeah, is that a case where they've just run out of surprises and it's like, well, everybody knows they're all coming back. Just put them all in the trailer.
I think so. I think it's like, well, you know what you're going to get most excited about? Not vague stories, but faces getting together and talking to each other. So if we're going to do that, you might as well lean into it. Can't blame me for that.
We'll have this argument when it comes out, but in my heart, Lower Decks is the real successor to TNG, not Picard.
Those are, I think, for different values of successor, those both can be true, right? And what I hope will happen with this season is that they give us a really nice send-off. Journey's End, was it Journey's End was the last one, I think? The very last episode of The Next Generation is a fantastic send-off. But since they've gone and made movies after that, and then 2 seasons of Picard, I wouldn't mind having one final farewell to say, like, you know what, this is the last time we're getting the old team together. Let's give them a grand send-off. So that's where my hopes are for this.
And I mean this with all affection, but at this point, if I say fan service, it sounds like I'm trying to diminish Picard, but it's very specific.
Mm-hmm.
Like The Next Generation means so much to me that I'm happy to spend the money to just give me just one more, just a little bit more, and then we'll be done for reals this time.
Right. It's the class reunion effect.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's like, you know what? I'm older. I have more money now. I would like you
I just want to see
just
what
one more
everybody's
time.
doing.
Hey, yeah. You know what? 3 out of the 4 monkeys are there. That's fine. It's the county
That's
fair.
cool. Yeah, it's all good.
Here we come. Yeah.
DC released a second trailer for Shazam! Fury of the Gods coming March 17th.
I was a bit surprised that I felt, what's the word? Absolutely nothing. Because I really liked Shazam. but this was so like the spoiler for Shazam. The majority of the rest of the team only kind of shows up as a surprise at the end, and then we've got the sacrifice of like I'm going to give up my powers, and I'm like, cool. I kind of only just barely watched you get comfortable with them, but all right.
I watched this trailer and thought, that looks like more Shazam. And then I thought, I liked Shazam. And then I thought, why aren't I more excited? So I kind of fell in the same.
Okay, good.
Same boat as you.
I felt really bad as I said those words.
I mean, I enjoyed the trailer, but I almost felt like, and now I'm done. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just a bad trailer. Maybe the trailer needed to leave me wanting more than it did. I feel like it should when we're only 2 months away, less than 2 months away from the from the release.
Really?
This is I am feeling the pull to go into a theater less than I used to. Let me preface this by saying that. But I'm still wanting to go to a theater to see things, and this is one where I'm like, yeah, just wait and watch that on HBO Max.
I am the reverse. I am begging for an excuse. Just lie to me. Tell me you'll be a good movie, and that I'll be able to buy an IPA and a pizza and sit and not have my kids insist on getting up and leaving in the middle of the movie.
Yeah,
please, just
makes
anything.
a difference. Nintendo shared a bit more footage for the Super Mario Brothers movie on Sunday. It was our first chance to hear Seth Rogen's take on Donkey Kong. Really, it was just an expansion on some stuff we'd already seen in other trailers, though. The movie comes out April 27th.
Decent potential here. I'm not overly emotionally moved. Bryce, did this affect you in any way?
The conspiracy theory is that we didn't hear a lot of Chris Pratt in this trailer because they're going to have him re-record some of his lines.
With a little bit more Italian.
I don't expect that to be reality, but they did remake the Sonic character model.
They did.
And it's a big deal.
we've
They
seen
very
Games voice
publicly
right
remade the Sonic character model, though. I would feel like if they were going to do that, they'd want to get the punch out of it, but
I don't know. It was good seeing Cat Mario. I like seeing Cat Mario.
Yeah, and it was a fine wink of how silly it is, and yeah.
All right. Finally, Rick and Morty co-creator Justin Roiland is facing felony charges of domestic violence, and Adult Swim has ended its association with him. Dan Harmon will become the show's sole showrunner, and Roiland's voice acting roles, which include Rick and Morty, will be recast. That is the thing I am most curious about, is how do you take those two iconic voices and Kermit the Frog them? Find somebody who can do them in a way that is so good that you, even if you notice a difference at the beginning, quickly lose that reaction. But Brian, you said that you're not that interested in that aspect of this.
Oh, well, I mean, I certainly am in that part is known. Like it's stated by Adult Swim that Justin Roiland is being detached from everything. And of all the properties, if there's one property that can easily navigate the fact that somebody's voice changes, because go back to season one Rick by Justin Roiland doesn't sound like season 4 Rick or
Well, yeah, and Simpsons too, right? Like Bart and Homer especially sounds much different than season 1, but those are slow changes.
right.
Whereas this will be not only abrupt, but have a huge spotlight on it as everyone listens in to hear how are they going to sound now.
And I don't know, an alien Gleek Glop invades their vocal cords and they sound like Transformers for half an episode. Then they sound like Cobra Commander for another episode. Then they sound like Captain Planet for a bit. I don't know, but that seems pretty easy to write away. Mainly, I'm so fascinated by the chess game because as fans, things we don't know are all the details of the criminal thing. Maybe Justin's going to go to jail or whatever. We know that Dan, on again, off again, competent showrunner. We know that Adult Swim, unprecedented 70 episode order, multiple millions of dollars to do all this. So it's like, it seems like that would be a smart play for Adult Swim to make, is to say, hey, the thing you like, you're allowed to keep on liking it. Don't worry, no complications at all. Maybe voices are different. We'll get back to you. There's a big focus in the media on all of the other performers, the actors and the writers and the showrunners on there. That's all a smart play. The pile-on effect has been that Justin Roiland has retired from Squanch Games. He's basically just pulled back from everything. And again, like, the trial hasn't even happened. The incident happened at the beginning of 2020, and only now the trial's about to happen, whatever that circus is. So in a world where Hollywood has traditionally been pretty adept at cover-ups of bad behavior, and now we're in a different reality where instead they're Adult Swim at least is being very transparent about this. It'll be fascinating to watch all of this unfold, and that's about all I've got. Like, there's too many things we don't know to really comment upon, and everything is speculation at this point.
Geez, Brian. That's all I got to say. You really think? No, I don't think I'm going to audition. That's what I'm coming to. Right, let's get to what we've had our eyes on. Brian, what you been watching?
So, forget who, but somebody let me know about a really cool Marvel card-based RPG game.
I wonder who that might have been.
Bryce turned me on to Marvel's Midnight Suns, which has been an absolute blast. And what's a fun knock-on effect, it's a turn-based tactical strategy game in the vein of your XCOMs or your Civilizations. It's from Firaxis Studios. And one of my favorite things has been various kids coming in and watching a bit of it and saying, "Who's that?" And then me just saying, "Wait, you don't know who Venom is?" I'm like, "No, why would I?" And I'm like, "1 second." And then just opening up Venom, and I'm like, garbage, 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 garbage. Anyway, this happens, garbage, garbage. This happens, garbage, garbage. This happens. 40 minutes. Okay, now back to the game. And then they're like, "Yeah, but why do I care about Dr. Spooky? His name's not actually Dr. Spooky. His name's Dr. Strange. Here, let's watch the beginning of Dr. Strange. Watch, and then drop it." It's been great. And I think I did the same thing with Blade as well. By the way, the first 10 minutes, the cold open of Blade, super holds up. My 15-year-old was entranced. It's so good. It's so great.
That's fantastic. Man. That's cool. I love how that led to like an ability that you wouldn't have under cable. You would have had to go in olden days, rent the DVDs and bring them home to do that.
And commit to the entire thing instead of just like, I'm going to skip to the good part. You got to know this. You got to know that.
I can find this online. Here we go. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Very cool.
It's great.
I want to recommend a Netflix show called The Glory. It's a Korean show, but Brian and Bryce, it's 8 episodes and each one less than an hour.
Oh, now you know how to speak our mutual Korean love language.
So now that I have you on the hook, let me explain the premise. It is a revenge story. So it's a woman who gets extremely bullied. Trigger warning, no kidding, for bullying. Like it is no joke bullying in high school. Drops out of high school because of the bullying, and at that point begins planning her revenge. So the story is told in 2 timelines. One is occasional flashbacks, which I feel like are just enough to keep you understanding the motivation for the revenge. And then most of it taking place in the present when she is reinserting herself into the lives of the bullies with a plan to take them all down. It's a delicious story. And on top of it, they structured it so that she meets genuinely nice people in the course of her revenge who learn about her revenge plans. And more than once, one of them has said, but the problem with revenge is that you never feel satisfied at the end. And revenge can blow back on you just as much or more as it hurts the person you're trying to get revenge on. Then she tells them her story, and each one of them says, how can I help?
Ha! That's amazing.
That's a good bit.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're into that, again, it's a pretty intense backstory, but what I think they handle well is they don't dwell on it. They show you enough to get you upset like she is, and then shift you into the present and show you what she's doing to get revenge. Again, it's called The Glory on Netflix. All right, Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, I got a pick for you guys. I accidentally ended up binging this over the weekend. It's the new anime anthology, Junji Ito Maniac, Japanese Tales of the Macabre. This is 12 half-hour episodes on Netflix right now, and it adapts 20 short stories from acclaimed horror writer and illustrator Junji Ito. I think what is the most interesting about... Are either of y'all familiar with the name Junji Ito, or you might have seen some of his work?
Rings a bell, yeah.
If you remember the old, the one where there's a fault in a mountain, and there are these human-shaped holes, and the people go inside, and on the other side of the mountain they find another fault, and they're all squiggly. That's one of his more famous stories. Anyway, the big push on this, similar to his other works, is that the stories are pretty short. These are only half-hour episodes, and most of them are split into two half-episode stories, kind of like an old cartoon. And I think that really pushes us beyond. A lot of this is conceptual horror, right? Oh, what happens if big balloon monsters came by and their string was a noose, and they had to go and catch their human that they represent by the neck. There's kind of not a 90-minute story in there, but you can do a good little 10-minute whoa. And I think that's really where this shines, is having a lot of concepts and being really concept focused.
It gives you permission. When you only have 10 minutes, you get away with saying, because that's why.
Right.
Whereas something like A Quiet Place, after 90 minutes, you might be all like, wait a minute. So they can't hear anything? Or
And because of that, you never get this chance to be like, well, then what happens? Or how did we start there? A lot of these don't really even have a resolution, which, I mean, they're horror stories. They're not supposed to exactly make you feel good. And so I thought that was really, really interesting. And these 12 episodes went by fast, partly because they're half hours, but partly because they're really good. So I think these are great. It's called Junji Ito Maniac. It's streaming on Netflix at the moment. If you've got something we should be on the lookout for, please email it to us, cordkillers@gmail.com.
Brian Brushwood, I need a new PC. Where should I go?
You should head on over to doghousesystems.com/rogue. Spell it right, ROGUE. Doghousesystems.com. They're the ones who provide us with all the horsepower that brings this very show to you. And they have extraordinary, unbelievable, next level customer service. Everybody should go to doghousesystems.com/rogue.
Indeed. Anything else going on before we?
Latest thing we got, we're working on a new release over at Scam Stuff, but for right now, 20 years ago, I did a lecture called Scam, Sasquatch, and the Supernatural, all about pseudoscience and the paranormal, and we did a revisit of it. It's really a delight. I'm very, very pleased with the feedback that we've gotten.
It's a blast.
It's 3+ hours, 3.5 hours long, I think.
It's just over 3 hours, I believe.
And there's so much value in there. I'm really, really proud of it.
It's me, you, and David and Jeff.
Yeah.
All rewatching the old Scam Sasquatch and the Supernatural lecture.
Nice.
And I get to have the smug satisfaction of watching all of the tricks actually work on other people, and everybody who has worked with me for years are like, no, it's not going to work on me, and then it works on everybody. It's so great. It's so great. It's interactive. You play it at home. It's awesome.
Check out scamstuff.com.
So it's like a React video, but better.
Only it doubles the size of the original product.
It's like a director's commentary.
Yeah.
It's like a premium podcast.
No, that's very good.
Yeah.
Go check that out as well. Let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
We're long past the days when we would note that a streaming service got an award nomination. We're now well into the era of who got what nominations. The Oscar nominees were announced last week. Everything Everywhere All at Once, I think it's safe to say, is a favorite of the Cordkillers crew and got 11 nominations, the most of any entrant. The studio with the most nominations was Disney with 22, if you count Searchlight Pictures, which is part of Disney. That was followed by Netflix, which got 15 nominations, 9 of them for All Quiet on the Western Front, and Warner Brothers with 13. If you're wondering where Apple ended up, they got 2 nominations.
Have any of the three of us watched the new All Quiet on the Western Front?
I've been meaning to, and I have not.
Maybe this should be one of the Spoilerin time picks.
Yeah. We've got a gap coming up. Maybe we can fill it with that. That's not a bad idea.
Meanwhile, Comcast said it added 5 million new subscribers to Peacock in Q4 to pass 20 million, and it tripled its revenue to $2.1 billion. Comcast is still spending more on Peacock than it makes, and it expects losses to peak at $3 billion this year. Comcast Cable lost 440,000 video subscribers and lost 26,000 broadband subscribers. Are we worried for Comcast? Are we shedding a tear?
I don't know. My wife works for a company owned by NBC. What do you think? I think.
No tears have been shed over here, Tom.
Watch more Peacock. And we have a lot of Peacock branded things around the house too. Very warm blanket. I don't know. I feel like Comcast is willing to pour money on this thing until it works. That's what this looks like to me.
Yeah, and to be honest, I would say that's the right move for them to do, because you have to acknowledge that broadcast is not going to, remain a force in the future.
I don't think everyone seems to think Peacock's going to die. I don't think Peacock's going to die, although it could transform. It could become, NBC Plus or some such thing. They might relaunch it. I think would be the worst thing that I would expect. Speaking of streaming services that everyone wonders if they'll stick around and hang on, Paramount Plus is going to be renamed Paramount Plus with Showtime, and Showtime will be renamed Paramount Plus with Showtime in the U.S. Some Showtime originals will be available on the Paramount Plus tier. Showtime will still be a tier of Paramount. Paramount says that this will only affect the top tiers, the ones where you paid for Showtime and Paramount Plus together already. So it's just kind of a renaming of things, I think.
As you would imagine, I probably have thoughts. Anyone who signed up for the MoviePass wait list can now join in the beta in the United States as it expands nationwide. Prices vary by region, with the cheapest being $10 a month for a limited number of credits, and the most expensive in New York at $60 a month, which gives you enough credits to see one movie a day. MoviePass says it has 4,000 theater locations participating.
I got a few other notes here. HBO approved a second season of The Last of Us, so that's for sure going to happen even before the first season is done. Fox renewed Bob's Burgers, Family Guy, and The Simpsons, each for 2 more seasons. So not just one renewal, but 2 seasons at a go for each one of those. Netflix released a trailer for Murder Mystery 2, starring Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler, coming March 31st. Disney Plus ordered a second season of Extraordinary. It's a superhero series from writer Emma Morin and Killing Eve producer Sid Gentle. HBO Max will wind up both Titans and Doom Patrol at the end of their 4th season. James Gunn says that decision was made before he came on board at DC. NBC announced a special tribute to Carol Burnett called Carol Burnett, 90 Years of Laughter and Love. That will air on April 26th at 8 p.m. and then stream on Peacock the next day, April 27th. Hollywood Reporter sources say Phoebe Waller-Bridge will write the script for a Tomb Raider series to appear on Amazon Prime Video. A TV adaptation of the Frog and Toad children's books coming to Apple TV Plus on April 28th. Netflix will adapt One Piece, one of the most popular mangas ever, into a live-action series in 2023. Toei Animation produced 20 seasons of One Piece as an anime. And the Puppy Bowl. Used to be, if you didn't have cable, it was hard to find the Puppy Bowl. This year, the alternative programming to the Super Bowl that features puppies pretending to play football will be simulcast on Animal Planet, Discovery Channel, TBS, HBO Max, and Discovery Plus.
It would be tempting to just roll your eyes at Puppy Bowl, but as the father of 3 daughters, who boy, was the Puppy Bowl the event, and boy, did I, as the technical patriarch, have to solve the solution of how everybody could watch the Puppy Bowl. So good. Yes, please make the Puppy Bowl as easy as possible for everybody to watch.
All right, let's get to the dispatches from the front. Brian has been among those singing the praises of Andor, and Michael from Texas wrote in, said, took me a while to get around to watch it, but once I started, it didn't take long to binge through it. Short take, it felt like a movie. I'm not even going to say a long movie because I never checked to see how much longer is this thing going on. Yes, it was broken up into episodes, but it was paced to make it not feel chopped up. The writing was solid. Pacing was solid. The characters were solid. The special effects did not feel like they were making a video game and thought, that's good enough for the small screen, ship it. Andor was very well done, and I'm starting to spread the good word. Thank you for continuing to say this is the best Star Wars in years.
And that is a fact, and I love the fact that so many people, when I ask, so you watching Andor? They're like, I don't know, isn't that a minor character from a not very successful Star Wars film? And I'm like, yes, it's also the best Star Wars anything, full stop.
Well, that's the amazing thing is I was not excited for Andor because it was a Rogue One spinoff. And not that I didn't like Rogue One. I liked it well enough. Probably liked it, in the upper 50% of people who liked or didn't like that movie. But I just wasn't excited for more of Cass Andor. And turns out I was wrong. I should have been because it was really good. Norm Fazekas wrote in and said, hey guys, interesting interview/show with Bill Oakley on Cordkillers. Never heard of the guy before, so it was nice to hear about his recent work and career. It was a little strange that you started off with an interview. I thought I stumbled onto a very special episode of Cordkillers before moving on to the regular show. So it was a little disjointed, but still very enjoyable. Thanks, Norm. Well, Norm, when you felt like you had stumbled across a very special episode of Cordkillers, you had.
Yeah, turns out we would like to have many more very special episodes of Cordkillers where we have Hollywood luminaries join us. And yeah, we're going to make a little bit of room in the dance floor right at the very front to sing their praises.
I realize that it is unusual for us to do an interview off the top of the show. It is not unusual for this kind of show to have an interview off the top. So yeah, I understand the disconnect, Norm, of like, hey, that's not what I expect. But that's what keeps our relationship interesting.
Yeah. And you know what else keeps it interesting is when you guys write us at cordkillers@gmail.com, especially if you mention you're one of our bosses at patreon.com/cordkillers.
Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address, like Brian just said, cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Talk to you next time.
Hey, Tom Merritt, what's going on?
I'm just hanging out here watching this scroll go by. What are you doing?
Trying to set up a bit where we thank our beautiful, beautiful patrons, all these wonderful names.
I'm sorry, I'm too distracted looking at these beautiful, beautiful patron names going by. Look at that one. I mean, if you wanted to be one of these people, patreon.com/cordkillers would be the place to go.
I mean, they're scratching our itch, like, because we're addicted.
As long as it's consensual, like,
we're addicted to their money.
And love. Might as well face it.
Well, God damn it.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.